Welcome all, and first off, just wanted to give a big thank you to Naomi and Michael and Rupert here and Kelly, Stacy, all those that have volunteered time and effort to make this event possible and to support OSN. Also, shout out to WGU and Walmart and those organizations that support OSN and help to promote an equitable, skills-driven labor market and all the work that surrounds OSN. My name is Taylor Kendal. I am with Learning Economy Foundation and excited to support as moderator for this panel on learner agency, RSDs as tools for individual empowerment. So if you expected to be somewhere else, jump now. This is session 1 in group 3 on learner agency. Quick context up front here. Earlier this year, Learning Economy had the pleasure of facilitating the inaugural 2021 skills pilots with the goals of creating libraries of rich skill descriptors, or RSDs, as you've heard to this point likely, which are just machine readable schemas for expressing skills and competencies across a number of sectors. Also pressure testing the open skills management tool, OSMIT as it's affectionately known, which is a tool for publishing and sharing libraries of RSDs, which you also heard up front in some of the kickoff earlier from Sarah. 14 pilot teams participated, 4 of which we have here that you'll hear from shortly. They spent months in sort of a quick, it was months, but it also felt like a sprint to basically accomplish some of those goals. During this panel, we're going to hear from this subset of teams and just have a discussion about their unique pilots and their approaches and how that relates to this broader theme of learner agency. So we'll kick it over to Rupert briefly, and then we will get into the meat of the matter here. We've got a lot to run through, so hoping to have about 15 or 20 minutes for discussion. So I will be monitoring the chat, so please provide questions there, and we will filter them back to this awesome group of panelists towards the end. Rupert.
Okay, thanks, Taylor. So I want to introduce myself. You already know me from earlier. So we've got 4 groups today. We've got a group from North Dakota, Western Governors, Arizona State, and myself and colleagues from Matchmaker. I'm presenting on their behalf. So we'll just dive straight into the slides so we can talk through what we've done and give an overview. And then obviously we want to keep as much time as possible to answer any of your questions at the end. So I'll just stick the slides on and we can dive straight into North Dakota. So let me just get these set up.
I can present my own slides if you like, Rupert.
I don't mind, whichever. I've got them up now.
So I'm here presenting for myself and Tracy Corsmo. Tracy is the director of North Dakota's IT department and runs their state longitudinal database and SLED system. We've been working with them to implement verified credentials for their high school transcripts, and this pilot is an extension of that. If you can go to the next slide. Oh, yes, you did lost our logo fest as well. So we have a large range of partners on this. I work with Public Consulting Group. We're the prime contractor working on the Verified Credential Publisher. Randa Solutions, our partner, has developed the Open Credential Publisher. We're working with Mill Gears and Solid on military pathways, the North Dakota Department of Public Instruction, Bismarck State College, the North Dakota CTE Department, Credential Engine, NIST and NICE and IQ4 are all participating in the cybersecurity pathways project. We're unique in the pilots in that we're the only pilot that didn't use OSMIT to publish our reusable skill definitions. We're using IMS Global Case Format, Competencies and Academic Standards Exchange, and the Open SALT tool, which has been updated to support the JSON-LD recipe. So we did a couple of things. One is we demonstrated the ability to create pathways of competencies from kindergarten all the way through career related to cybersecurity and progressions of learning and progressions of certification on those pathways. And we've also demonstrated that we can do that using IMS Global Case Format and worked with IMS Global to perfect or at least complete the JSON LD interfaces for CASE. So you have tens of thousands of competencies associated with the NICE NIST framework, as well as all of the K-12 and post-secondary CTE competencies in cybersecurity and technology in a server, an open source server, case.nd.org, that you can access today. So, there is now a network of competencies and skills that's also connected to the IMS Global CASE network. Now, we're using these to issue badges and credentials to a personal web wallet and mobile wallet so students can exchange these skills that they've acquired through course completions, both in high school and post-secondary. So it's been a very exciting pilot. I think we are just starting on this road, this pathway, if you will, to pathways. And we have a lot to discover, but what we've demonstrated is a real world example of how to take course and high school transcripts, college transcripts, and affect pathways of credentials towards cybersecurity careers. Did I get close to 3 minutes?
Do you want to talk?
Yeah, so this is related to an initiative within North Dakota called Choice Readies. Choice Ready is an initiative both in K-12 and post-secondary to prepare students for careers in post-secondary specialties. And we're focusing on both the military ready pathway and the workforce ready pathway for cybersecurity. And this is the first example of a credential pathway under this Choice Ready program that they've done at the state level, and we'll be doing a lot more. So outcomes very quickly, then these are important. We demonstrated the ability to create complex competency and skill frameworks using CASE and OpenSalt and have cross associations between them, between the course IDs, the course scope and sequence, and the standards that are delivered in the course are all expressed in these frameworks, as well as their alignments to the NICE NIST framework and the competencies that are extended there. So this is a very comprehensive example of a graph network of relationships around reusable skill definitions. And I hope people take a close look at it because there are many great organizations that participated in collecting and organizing this data. We created a comprehensive and extended NICE framework in CASE format. So there is a comprehensive sort of almost next version of NICE framework available. We demonstrated the creation of academic progressions using NICE work roles. So progressions of learning from kindergarten all the way through career related to different NICE work roles. We demonstrated alignments between NICE work roles and military occupation codes and the training and certification tests in those military occupation codes. And this was, I think, the biggest one. We demonstrated the ability to collaborate across all of these different organizations and to affect a common set of definitions of skills. This is the big win here. And I think the thing OSN should talk about a lot, which is affecting these collaborations, because there's no mechanism or organizational structure to enable the definition of articulated pathways and transfer of credits between these different organizations. And this is a critical problem. Also, very fundamentally, we did implement the CASE LD format and demonstrated the ability for IMS Global CASE to affect the open skills and open skill exchanges. Now I know I went over my 3 minutes.
To the Indiana Achievement Wallet, please, Melissa.
Thank you. So the Indiana Achievement Wallet group is a cross-functional collaborative group, and we're working together on a pilot to allow learner workers to promote their skills in the healthcare profession within the state of Indiana. So final products from this project are going to include a learner employment record and an achievement wallet that will include compassing tools to reveal learner worker achievements and credentials, pathways for additional credential opportunities in education, and job opportunities that align with their demonstrated skills. So I'm Melissa Clark. I'm a skills architect from Western Governors University, and I was able to serve as the pilot lead, gathering us together for the work in the OSN Pilot. Next slide, please, Rupert.
So we're on collaborative partners. So.
Perfect. So these are a number of our collaborative partners involved across the IAW project. And those members directly involved in the development of rich skill descriptors for the pilot was Western Governors University, IQ4, Goodwill Excel Center, Ivy Tech, and Major Health Partners. Next, please. Thank you. So our goal for participating in this pilot was really to enhance, develop, and validate a collection of high-demand, rich skill descriptors for medical assistants. And we sought to ensure that RSDs share the same language, the same meaning and common language through alignment with labor market analytics data from MZ Burning Glass. And we were also seeking the purpose of expanding access to educational pathways and career opportunities for those worker learners in the state of Indiana. As far as our outcomes and challenges, we met our primary outcome of the pilot work. We created a validated collection of over 700 medical assistant RSDs. And additional relevant outcomes included igniting skills talk across our partner institutions, developing those rich skill descriptors, and really for the first time testing out our schema related to the rich skill descriptor and properties with our partners. We stress tested the use of the open skills management tool with users outside of WGU, and we provided the foundation that we'll then use for developing education and career pathways in the Indiana Achievement Wallet project. The challenge really that we faced is unsurprising, and that is that it was time and timeline. As Taylor mentioned earlier, we really were sprinting across this project work. And we found it was a challenging time of year potentially to engage with our academic and industry partners to ask them to think about redefining their historical outcomes in such a different way. Thanks, Rupert.
Thank you. Yeah, shooting, please.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mark Fogelson. I'm a principal instructional designer, as you can see, at the College of Health Solutions. I'm joined also by another ASU colleague of mine, CR Macchi, who's the chair of internship programs, as well as being a clinical associate professor. We have a number of, so there's only two of us. We're actually represented across other panels that are currently going on. ASU is a huge organization. We brought in so many different entities and participants from across the university, both within the academic area, the knowledge area, and administrative, in order to answer the question, which is not necessarily represented here, but in general, we were looking at the concept of meta competencies. We use the term meta, and it has a variety of meanings to different people. To us, it means overarching. And these meta competencies are slightly distinct, are actually quite distinct from the rich skill descriptors that so many of us have worked with and are working towards. I'll describe that in a little more detail in just a bit. We'll identify the fact that we broke ourselves into three teams, one that was focused on the rich skill descriptors themselves and how we might be able to align those with our meta competencies. There's a user experience user interface group that was interested in forward-looking for our continued relationship with OSN and the OSMIT on how to facilitate the various groups that are going to be utilizing this tool across the university. And then our Tech Align group, because OSN, the OSMIT, is not going to stand alone. We have multiple applications, as you might imagine, technical and otherwise, across the university with which we need to interface in order to make best use of this tool and of this concept. Next, please. So here it is, why we participated. So the Arizona Board of Regents, which is the governing body over all universities at Arizona, came up with 4 key competencies that are inquiry, collaboration, innovation, and engagement. Just hearing that, you automatically, I hope, recognize the fact that these are not your standard career-based skills. And the epiphany that came to me and others is that both are incredibly important. If we were to extend the analogy of currency that was discussed in the plenary session, we're still talking about the same currency, but this is an additional denomination, perhaps a different dimension. where there's the career-based skills, which employers are looking for. Can you do this aspect of the job? And then there's these greater or meta competencies, which you may refer to as workplace skills. So what we attempted to do is bring those two together. Examples, by the way, would include teamwork, collaboration, critical thinking, digital fluency. All of these rest above and within those other skills. And then how to translate that into our curricula so that not only are we remaining completely transparent to our students regarding the relevancy of the coursework that they're taking, but also to prepare best for the future employment landscapes in which they need to know not only those quote unquote hard skills, but also these lifetime learning or meta skills. Next, please. The outcomes and challenges, it was tough to get them on one slide, but the key ones that I think we could draw out are the fact that we were able to define our meta competencies a little bit more. We came up with a single sheet, well, we call it a one-sheeter, it's actually 3 or 4 pages, that define what those competencies are, those meta competencies. I want to be careful with my terminology since we're using them interchangeably. And then the measurable behaviors that would allow us to assess and evaluate a student going through this journey, our lifelong learners, as to the level of mastery that they've met. And we also practiced with the OSMA tool itself. We identified how we can integrate these meta competencies into these more specific RSDs, and then came back with our initial feedback on how can we best adopt this into the ASU system. Speaking personally, and I know I'm running close on time, I do want to say that I worked within our college to align all of our programs and courses, and in so doing, draw out those specific skills at the course level. That's what's necessary to happen within higher education. It's a work in progress, but that for others who are on the call who are attempting to integrate this into existing curricula, the alignment between what are normally called course objectives, which can be sometimes rather vague, and much more transparent, relevant skills, career placement skills, is a necessary task. Thank you.
So I'll just finish off quite briefly with the final of our pilots, which involved Michael J, who's CEO of Matchmaker, and myself and various others. So we had a set of different organisations involved doing different roles within our solution. So in terms of Matchmaker, they provided both the management of the pilot and the data connectivity solution for our pilot. Cosgrove and Associates were effectively the client, linking us in with community colleges. Quiddity were looking at the idea of learner value, so a stakeholder perspective. Ourselves, the University of Huddersfield, providing a sort of system-based approach using 21st century skills and personalised learning to underpin the approach being taken, and Evaluate there as an output guide providing feedback on the potential implementation of what we were looking to develop. So the reason we participated covers those main areas, really. The first one was a technical sort of interest in terms of how do we actually navigate large groups of skills and competency and curriculum and link these bits together. Second one was bringing together different perspectives from different stakeholders and looking at using some overarching mechanism, in this case 21st century skills, to address that. Third one was taking a real client and community colleges, being those as to how do we actually support them in this learner earner journey as a key area of where we want to be enacting change and supporting change. And the final one there, looking at some technical issues and what we want to do in terms of generating interoperability. So what are we trying to achieve in terms of output? So then in terms of outcomes and challenges, everybody's been mentioning about RSDs, rich skill descriptors, and we can discuss more on that in a discussion as required, but using those within here was part of the pilot. Second one was looking at the concept of granularity and what an appropriate level of granularity would be. The third key point there really is about how we use technology to map between different competency areas, workforce areas. Fourth one then was looking at substantial sets of job roles and skills descriptors and the use of process mapping and the use of ONET within there, and then looking ahead towards phase 2. So looking at where we might be able to use, for example, unique identifiers as extra fields within OSMIT to enable us to do some more dynamic matching in terms of how different bits of the system fit together. And then we were just, Michael was just putting in a key bit at the end really in terms of just, it's been a challenging year for everybody globally. Well, last couple of years, to be honest, for everybody globally. And particular, just shout out to one of our groups there, the community colleges, and the challenges they've been facing. We just want to acknowledge that and more broadly for everybody else. And, and then all of this stuff here has more than just, a technical need. It's there to help support society more generally, and so it's a really important piece to do, and particularly in the current context, it's something that can have huge value. So I'll pass back to Taylor at that point.
Awesome. Thank you all for what I know. Speaking of another sprint, these were obviously just snapshots of the breadth of the work, but thanks for sharing that. And I'm not seeing any questions filtering through the chat, but we certainly have, I think, we've got a good 10 minutes, and I'd love to dive into just a broader conversation. And maybe we'll circle back and start with Joshua up front and can kind of filter through that way again. Given the sort of both, we're seeing the breadth of sort of approaches, the breadth of those involved. Just obviously this is very collaborative work and it involves many partners and players across the various pilots. How do you think about, given the theme of sort of learner agency, which is very individualistic and in many ways looking at skills at an individual level, how do you think about that and the need to ensure that this is about empowering the individual, combining that with the fact that these are broad coalitions that come together, and this isn't about necessarily the individual in many cases. How do you think about that sort of friction or that dynamic, individual to the group? And again, we can either kind of roll back through, or if anyone just has a burning thought, feel free to just
I certainly have burning thoughts on this. So where we've been working is from the current state of K-12 and post-secondary. What is it they currently have? And we've been encoding the data that exists and the requirements and the pathway information for an associate's and a bachelor's degree. What we've discovered is those pathways are institutionally specific, and the ability to articulate those achievements and credits between organizations is hampered by many different factors, including and most particularly the accreditation requirements for the different institutions. Different institutions under different accreditation systems have massively different seat time and other kinds of course requirements, which makes course equivalency difficult or impossible. Without a change in the regime associated with accreditation, at least here in the US, I don't see there's a solution towards enabling an agency, because it's largely constructed as institutional agency today. So we have to break that institutional control over the pathways of achievement towards a degree, or remove the degree as a requirement on the employer's side for us to break this logjam. And I think it's the latter that really matters. And I am quite depressed at the fact that everybody's talking to the employers are not telling us what we need. They should be driving this process, and they're absolutely not doing it today.
So Taylor, if I could speak a little bit about this, we're really excited about learner agency when it comes to the Indiana Achievement Wallet Group and the compassing technology that we're working on together across our partner organizations. And what that's going to allow the student to do is to empower them with the language in order to be able to speak to the skills that they have demonstrated and achieved in their educational pathways, and then be able to communicate that forward with their employer, prospective, current, future, etc., and say like, hey, I demonstrated this skill related to medical assistant in this way at my educational institution. Across these courses, across these credentials, right? And then like this is why I'm very well equipped to take on the role that you're looking for in your place of employment, right? And that's what's really powerful about the Indiana Achievement Wallet Project is this placing that power in the student, the learner, worker's hands, and allowing them to be able to start that conversation forward to further themselves in their educational goals and their career opportunities.
I want to add to that, as Joshua referred to seat time and Melissa talked about empowering the learner with the necessary credentials to reflect what skills they actually have. It really moving in that direction basically says, well, what happened in the seat? And this provides evidence for what happened, what kinds of skills that were developed. Going beyond that and reflecting upon the personalized journeys that Rupert had mentioned in the opening session, this idea that a student, if empowered with the data, coupled with the choices to create really unique and personalized pathways for specific targets, that's the sweet spot. And so referencing back to the work that we're doing here at ASU in our pilot project, we see that those skills that we've been discussing are one level. It's this other level. It's this overarching, the facilitating skills. Can they communicate? Can they work in teams? Do they know how to use technology? Coupled together provides not only the ability for the student to target a particular place, but as we know, they're going to be in multiple careers over their lifetime. Can they transfer those skills to a variety of different targets?
Rupert, I might tee up. Steve Gantz had a question. I think you could probably build it into a single response, but he just is curious about the challenges with community colleges in particular. So can talk maybe about the challenges there, but also any thoughts on that dynamic between sort of individual learner agency and the broader coalition works.
Yeah. Okay, I'll bring them both together because it's sort of, it's all part of the same thing. So coming back to Joshua's point earlier and where we've just gone round in the discussions there is, so how do you track what's happening? How do you track what's happening as an individual, as you're learning, as you're going through your journey? And how do in this case, educationalists track what's happening to that learner as they go through, right? And it's already been touched on here, and I mentioned earlier, having the right level of abstraction as to how you're going to communicate that information is really key. And so by doing that, we can solve the challenge that Joshua is raising here, which is if you can communicate clearly to the learner, you can also communicate it clearly to the educationalist, and you can provide them with a mechanism to explain what they are doing in a different way. And actually, everybody generally wants to do a good job, right? So if you're an educationalist, you want the learners to learn. And if you have a way of seeing how they learn and a way of giving them greater flexibility, choice, and progressing further, then all the better, right? And then taking that to the community college context, okay? The challenges there are, you've got, in the US, you've got university system, you've got community college system, and there's the problem with both is, and with education in general, is a lot of it's end assessment defined. It's defined on the qualification, not on the journey. So it's like saying, can you run 100 meters in 11 seconds? Not, have you made progress in being able to run it faster, right? And that's really counterproductive in terms of getting people through, and particularly within the community college environment, you also then got potential, because of that, you've got potential judgment and stigmatization of individuals. You've got demotivation in terms of making your journey through your learner-earner journey, right? So there's huge wastage in human capability, in human achievement in society in general, and a lot of dysfunction in society resulting from that. You go through a system where you don't feel you can achieve what you want, that starts causing real challenges beyond just, your learner-earner journey. So it all fits together. And I think, that's what we're trying to move forward, is trying to show that progress. Comes back to what was said in the keynote.
Yeah. So Rupert, if I can interject here. So your point earlier about the granularity problem is central to this. What we found in the real world data is the course syllabus is a very high level definition, and the course syllabus for the same course number can be vastly different between two different professors. There's no mechanism for them to agree upon what is the common knowledge within this course definition. So that's the missing piece. And the granularity of the assessment and performance evaluation criteria for those skills in context is the other missing piece. Unless we can agree and have a wiki-like mechanism for those who profess to be the owners of the knowledge to agree upon what the knowledge means, we'll never solve this problem.
So just a helpful bit there, is imagine Lego bricks, right? If you've got the right Lego bricks, different colors, whatever, maybe different dimension sizes, then you can build the wall, right? And you could have completely different walls there. So the example you're talking about there, but as long as you know what the Lego bricks are, you can move them between it. So you're right, it is about granularity, but it's about providing that mechanism using the existing systems that are already there. So translating them into the right level of granularity.
Let's make sure. I know we only have about 3 or 4 minutes, and we will have folks trickling in. So maybe just a final, and CR, please follow up on that if it makes sense. But maybe a 1-minute final thought, connecting your work back to this idea of learner agency, or something above and beyond OSN broadly. But yeah, a minute each maybe, and then we'll be at time.
It definitely relates. I think one way that would really facilitate a change, a sea change, a paradigm change, is that if we remove the unnecessary distinction between the academic and the workforce development, and really see it as a universal learner through the whole trajectory. If we can get to that point, then we're looking for specific we're talking about skills or other artifacts that are necessary to indicate where that person is along that particular journey or pathway, or however you want to describe that universal learner's experience, and whichever environment they're learning that and developing those skills.
Maybe Melissa, Mark, and then Joshua and Rupert, any final thoughts? We'll go in that order and then wrap it.
Yeah, so I think in terms of learner agency, I think really it's on us as educational institutions in partnerships with employer institutions to try to get to that common skills language, which is the goal of the rich skill descriptor, to allow learners and others to see those pathways across and what is demonstrated in the educational institution, what is sought in the field by the employer partners and the learner's evidence, whether they're self-certifying, whether they're tying it to their outcomes from their certifications from their educational institution, whatever mechanism is the trigger there, but really providing them with that language in order to be able to express what they've demonstrated and achieved, and just be able to articulate that.
So riffing off all of these great ideas, the lifelong learner that CR brought up is exactly the individual, the manner in which we are approaching, looking at our learners wherever they are in their journey. What Joshua brought up regarding the fact that there's discrepancies within even the same course number between professors. As part of that alignment that I was talking about, that needs to happen at the grassroots level before any progress can be made, even within a single institution, much less over multiple. And for tracking, there's that wonderful work that's being done in Indiana. We're doing similar work attempting to attach artifacts to digital credentials, digital portfolios, so that there can be actual proof of knowledge. And we're tracking it across granularity levels, from introductory to mastery. So you could have micro-credentials that show that journey all the way through just within the institution, or expanding both prior to and after. All of this is a necessary component, but it's a lot of work.
I think we have 30 seconds. So
I'll close by saying I agree with everything everybody said here. I'm simultaneously deeply depressed about the prospects of attaining these goals that we have, and very excited that we have opened the gateway to an entire new universe that will allow us to have that sea change of skill-based learning rather than seed time Carnegie unit-based learning, and have individuals take ownership over their own learning process. As a banana slug, a UC Santa Cruz graduate, I believe firmly that you need to define your pathway, and you need to, do it yourself, or else you're not learning. So, maybe the rest of the world is catching up to us banana slugs.
We'll end on bananas. I love it. Thank you all. Appreciate, obviously, all the work over the past few months. It's been a joy working with these pilot teams, and looking forward to moving above and beyond. Obviously, all this work continues. So thanks for the time today, and all the work over the last few months.
Thank you for the time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ted.